JJ the CPA here. Hope you're doing well. Let's talk about the stimulus and what's going on, but let me just tell you why I'm putting this together. Really what it comes down to right now, there's a lot of sausage being made, as they say, up in DC. And so I just want you to be on the lookout. Today's December 1st. There's going to be probably a number of videos that you're going to see on other channels. Potentially some other information coming out there that may concern you. Rightfully so, depending on what you're reading. And I'm not talking about, are you paying attention to something that leans to the left or leans to the right? But right now there are a ton of plans out there talking about what will be in the next stimulus. What's going on right now is that everybody's back at the table. Everybody's talking. Now, they're not at the same tables, but they're now talking. Today, a bipartisan group of senators came up with a plan, just under $1 trillion. The Republicans have a plan that's $500 billion. We know that the Democrats in the House have had a plan well over $2 trillion. We know that the Problem Solvers Caucus, which is a bipartisan group out of the House, has a plan that's $1.5 trillion. So what's it going to be? Well, some combination of all of those things. One of the things to note is that December 11th, which is Friday, depending on when you're watching this, right? So next Friday, or December 11th, is when the government, in essence, needs to be funded further to continue. Another continuing resolution would be required so that the government can stay open. So that seems to be now potentially a driving force for those in DC to huddle up and figure out the stimulus package. If you know that about 2 months ago, the government was going to shut down, they did a continuing resolution. And when they did that, they didn't do anything about the stimulus package. It does seem as though, as we're heading into the holidays, as in Christmas, Hanukkah, the other holidays that we would have going into December or the end of December, early part of January. Of course, that pulls on the heartstrings even of the politicians. I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek. So we have that aspect of getting the stimulus package in play. A couple of things to note on this is I haven't done a video related to this since October 15th, so well over 6 weeks ago. I want you to pay attention to my community page on my YouTube channel, and I have a little bit more information for you in this video, so hang tight. I want you to pay attention to my community page on my YouTube channel as well as my story. You can Google, if you don't know where to find those things, Google and find it. It's just right on the main page of my YouTube channel. You have a community tab, and then if you look for the circle that says JJ the CPA in it on my main page, you click on it, you find my story. Why? Well, the first thing is I don't make a dime off any of that. Not that I'm putting any of this together per se to make a dime, but I don't make anything off of it. I'm putting in there information especially related to the stimulus talks that are maybe pertinent or interesting, or if there is a headline out there that some could interpret as checks are coming next week. I don't know how many videos people can put out saying checks are coming next week, or big update, or got this new update with the stimulus that's coming. So check out my community page and my story. I don't really plan to do any other videos related to this other than, okay, here is the stimulus package, or this is what the president's getting ready to sign, so here's what you need to be prepared for. What I want you to really keep in mind is three things. Number one, there very well may be no stimulus package until after Inauguration Day. They passed the continuing resolution once before and didn't do anything about the stimulus. That really could be the case. So plan on stimulus package being after the election. I did a poll on my community page, and more than half of you, last I remember, felt as though the stimulus would come after Inauguration Day. But remember this as well. Even with a stimulus package that gets agreed upon and signed into law, even if it is to help ensure as well for the government to continue. So let's say it's put into play next week by December 11th. The time for the aid to come out takes several weeks. It probably, unfortunately, would be into next year as it relates to actually seeing the aid hit our pockets. The one thing that's very interesting in this, but you need to just take it with a grain of salt, but here's why I'm bringing it up in this video. These packages, the Republicans, as well as this bipartisan, meaning both sides, bipartisan bill in the Senate, and one other thing that's being thrown around, don't include stimulus checks, those $1,200 checks. Now, the Democrats' plan includes it. The Problem Solvers bipartisan plan bill out of the House includes it. But this will be probably the number one thing that's going to draw emotion in the headlines, most likely on YouTube. Quite frankly, I'll be honest with you, I don't see the Yahoo-ness, the goofiness, and the despicable type of headlines just Googling what's going on with the stimulus talks. You only see these despicable headlines on YouTube of checks coming next week. It's coming now. Okay, real people are relying on this. What's unfortunate is that anytime I do a stimulus video, even though it's been more than 6 weeks, I might have 2,000 to 2,500 people watch it. Maybe it's because I'm not sensationalizing it. So thanks for tuning in. Spread the word. Let people know about this channel. I think it's different. And I am going to bring 2 more items to you of value. But there's something different about the channel. It's because I'm a certified public accountant. I have a thriving CPA practice, insurance practice. I've got 2 other businesses, which is all to say my livelihood is not YouTube. Okay? I make the least amount of all of my business off of YouTube. I put together videos to help you. They're meant for my clients. It's meant to bring value. So it's very upsetting to see other people on YouTube putting together garbage that they don't know what they're talking about and giving people, potentially you, false hope or false concern. So the second thing I want you to really think through is, do you even need to watch any of those videos? You can, but I know there's some on YouTube. They'll put a video up. It's 8 minutes. They read the news. I don't have anything against them. It's sensationalized. Their picture and their title is a sensationalized way for someone to want to watch it, and they get 1 million views in one day, and they're making bank, and they're driving that vehicle because they're putting together those vehicles, or because they're putting together those videos. Okay, I'm not making enough money on here to go and change my lifestyle. So the second thing is, you don't really need to pay attention to the noise. You don't need to watch the sausage being made. What you want to pay attention to is, okay, they came out with the sausage, the piece of sausage that's wrapped. Here it is in a package. Now what is it? That's what you want to just wait for. Now, I get it. Human nature, you want to keep up with it. I do. I read about it every single day. But don't let your hopes get up, and don't get discouraged by it. Don't be emotional about it, even though that's our human tendency when you're reading about the stimulus negotiations. None of what we're reading today, I put a link to an article on my community page that kind of had a nice summary and has links to other summaries of what's going on. None of what you're reading today or tomorrow or over the weekend or probably even up until something's passed will actually be what it is. I think there's still going to be stimulus checks. I feel there's going to be PPP. I feel there's going to be unemployment. Some are saying 300 a week. Some are saying more. Some are saying 6 weeks. Some are saying 4 weeks. Some are saying no stimulus checks. Some are saying yes stimulus checks. We don't know. So if you do want to keep up with it, have your guard up if you're watching other videos. But more importantly, maybe just Google stimulus updates, stimulus talks. Read articles from organizations that are more driven to report what's going on in the business world, because they have less commentary, less emotion, less trying to convince you that this is either great or bad. There's less emotion in it if you're finding those. I like Forbes most of the time. I like CNBC most of the time. I like The Hill most of the time. Fox Business most of the time. You can see that's both sides. And when I say most of the time, when it's talking about stimulus and PPP, they seem to most of the time hit the facts. If you're reading something and it's drawing emotion out of you, I'm worried about it, or my hopes are up, or maybe I can buy this, or now I can do Christmas, or maybe I can't do Christmas. Take a deep breath, step away from it for a second, because whatever you're most likely reading isn't going to really be the case. So wait for it to come out. The third thing I want you to note, though, is that for unemployment, it is taxable. I don't know if you knew that, but unemployment is taxable. Any of the unemployment benefits that you got or will get, regardless if it's at the federal, the FEMA, the individual, or the state level, okay? Unemployment is taxable to you. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't take it. The stimulus checks are not taxable. The stimulus checks have no tax effect. And PPP, we now know without a shadow of a doubt, results in a tax adjustment. Today is December 1st, based on what we know. The tax adjustment being for employers, you have to reduce down the expenses that you use the PPP monies for that then got forgiven. I've got plenty of video playlists on that, so go to my playlist. You're going to find immediately playlists that talk about PPP taxation and forgiveness. Not going to get into those details, but here's what I want you to keep in mind. Whatever stimulus comes into play, okay, for the unemployment and for the PPP, it's going to fall into next year. If you get unemployment, take it, okay? Take it. I'm not saying don't take it, but keep in mind it has a tax consequence, so take that in mind if you qualify for it and if it comes out and you get it. But minorly good, not going to even call it good news, but good that would fall into next year, in the sense that now it's next year's taxes, with next year having all the way till April 2022 to see where you're at. That's not to say you shouldn't withhold taxes on unemployment. Same thing for the PPP. If we had PPP2 in this year with PPP1 and you got both, you'd have two different tax adjustments. So don't get me wrong, if PPP2 comes out, you should not wait. You should apply for it. You should get it if you need it and if you qualify for it. But the third thing I'm kind of pointing out all here together is that it's going to fall into next year by the time it's hitting your pocket. But now we should be able to have our eyes a little more wide open to what are going to be the tax effects related to these items that are coming about. So what's the third point really here? Well, we'll be able to plan for it. We'll be able to plan for it accordingly. If we're getting PPP and it's going to result in a tax adjustment, yes, we need to use all those monies, but now we know we need to be prepared for the tax hickey that we know would come with PPP2, as well as any unemployment. So we want to plan for that. You want to plan accordingly related to that. Now, in the next stimulus, there could be blanket forgiveness. I haven't seen anything about it. In the next stimulus, they could correct the taxation aspect or the tax adjustment for the employers for PPP forgiveness. There is no tax adjustment. There's no tax effect for the Schedule C, Schedule F filer that got PPP and forgiven. Just side note, go watch my other videos for more details on that. But I don't see anything about it. So I will tell you this. I'm torn in closing because our country needs stimulus. And I'm not a promoter of getting money from the government. Until PPP, I never counseled a client, and I don't say there's anything wrong with it, but I never counseled a client on getting a grant. If they got a grant, they got it because they were doing something that helped the community or whatever. The business owners that I'm working with, the individuals that I'm working with, I've never gone through the process of getting money from the government to then help them through. But we've never been through a pandemic. That's a major obvious. Here's my whole point. Governments have required, various different governments throughout the United States, for there to be closures for various kinds of businesses, various lengths of time. There's been businesses that have had to close, or maybe they've reopened and then have closed. I don't have to go through all that with you, right? You know. So when the government does say, hey, you got to shut down, okay, whatever the reasons are, then I do believe the government then has an obligation to help those individuals and those businesses stay afloat, if you will. So I recognize we are way overdue on getting stimulus and getting stimulus help. We want to get the stimulus as soon as we can. But where I'm torn is that if they're going to rush through this, which quite frankly, why are they in this rush now? They've had plenty of time to be thinking, negotiating, talking, coming up with plans and ideas, and all of them have, but separately in different rooms and keeping away from each other. Now they're all kind of in the same room, still bickering, pointing fingers. But what's the big thing I told you at the beginning? December 11th is when the government needs a continuing resolution to not shut down. Continuing resolution as in they signed that, yep, we'll let the government have more money for the government to keep going. Not saying that's a bad thing, but now all of a sudden we're against that deadline. Not going to even criticize the fact that those in Congress now are definitely worried about that, because why? Well, it's their own paycheck. It's their own livelihood. It's the staff they see every morning, their livelihood, right? So I'm not going to even really go there. Find it a little frustrating that, well, finally when it becomes hitting at their doorstep, well, now it's a panic. Now they want to get after it. All that aside, the rush to get the government to continue to put stimulus into that, I think things that could be missed, things that could be overlooked, is things like the stimulus checks. While right now, $1,200 for a person, or $2,400 for married filing jointly, $500 a kid. I mean, don't get me wrong, every penny counts right now. But right now, when you're trying to throw something together and keep the government open, and they're saying, well, those stimulus checks aren't going to be a part of it. Well, I would rather see stimulus passed that includes those stimulus checks. I actually will not get one. Not trying to give you too much information. I won't get one, though. So I'm not trying to get one for myself or make sure I get one for myself. I know CSR, we have a side bet going on that he's hoping that he loses. Because if he loses, everybody wins. But all that to say, that was just a little plug for CSR, Card Shop Reality. Why rush this and then we don't have the stimulus checks included, which could be a real shot in the arm in a good way going into the holidays, getting a few things caught up. Not everybody's going to qualify for unemployment. You might be back working, but you're behind. The stimulus checks, I think, are key. Up until now, the stimulus checks have always been included. Now, I take that back. There was a Republican bill maybe a month ago that didn't include it, just to be fair. But nonetheless, they've always been included. It's always been an obvious. The Secretary of Treasury's kind of left the impression that like at any minute they're going to just be able to push a button and the $1,200 checks will go out to every adult, $500 for the kids, for the parents of the kids. They were, Secretary of Treasury just need Congress to say we can do it. So it's just now, though, that all of a sudden there's various plans that don't include the stimulus checks. We rush through it. What's it really do? Keeps the government open, provides unemployment, and yes, people need unemployment. But right now they're lower numbers than what were proposed in the summer, meaning the weekly benefit. Only having another 4 weeks of unemployment or another 6 weeks of unemployment, yes, it helps. I'm not saying that it doesn't. But will it be more well thought out unemployment benefits if it's not under the gun, the rush of let's keep the government open as well? Now, don't get me wrong. Please don't. We need stimulus. We need it. You need it. People need it. We all know people that need it. Now, if you have an opinion that the government shouldn't give handouts and all that, then most likely you're not in a position where you're in the shoes of those that have the set of circumstances that have been handed to them, that they're probably finding themselves for the first time in their lives needing assistance. So feel fortunate if you have the if you're able to say the government shouldn't give out any money, the government shouldn't bail out. Feel fortunate that you get to say that, because rest assured, be honest with yourself, the reason you get to say that is that you're not in your brother or sister's shoes that is in desperate measures that most likely is out of their control. But also related to the tax adjustment, if there was a more well thought out stimulus bill, I feel there would be time to review this tax adjustment and correct it and let the IRS know, hey, we appreciate, IRS, your position that there's going to be this tax adjustment for employers. But guess what? Our intent was that there is no tax effect. We actually said in Section 1105I of the CARES Act, here's the taxability. It shall be excluded from gross income. We meant for it not to have any tax effect. So watch my videos I just released on the positions related to that, the IRS, my message to Congress. But my hope is in a well thought out stimulus bill that they would be able to thoughtfully address that. That saves a huge amount of money, massive amounts of money for those that are going to owe. You can run the math and say, oh, people shouldn't whine and snivel because they got $100,000 of PPP and they paid out $100,000. Okay, then you're not in the circumstances where you're seeing that math not work out for you, and feel fortunate that you're not in a set of circumstances where that's going to blow you out of the water. Be thankful you have money to cover this tax adjustment. But there's going to be many that it will either cripple the business, put them out of business, and I know of people that are already out of business and are not going to be able to come up with the tax of no fault of their own. But it would be nice if a well thought out stimulus plan could address and clarify that there shouldn't be a tax adjustment the way the IRS has laid it out. Also related to the first package of the CARES Act and the PPP, potentially having a blanket forgiveness so that there's a certain dollar amount that you say, you know what, it's just forgiven. Just, it's done, it's over, it's forgiven. Right? Or just sign here and we forgive it. Just tell us that you used it as proposed. Whatever the case is, but a well thought out stimulus package would be able to address that. So the rush to this stimulus package, if it does in fact come into play before December 11th, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that we will all be relieved, we'll be happy, we'll take what we can get. But will it end up being maybe, I'm not going to go so far as to say scraps, but will it be not what it could be, so to speak? I think a stimulus package that targets and hits the right amount, and the society and our public, our citizens, America in the best way possible. I understand it's all sausage and we're all going to have our critiques of it, but more encompassing and well thought out, takes into play what are the repercussions of the CARES Act, how do we go into the next stimulus bill so that we're also cleaning up any of the aftermath of the first one. So I'm torn because, yes, if they can get a stimulus bill done by next Friday and we have money coming out, especially if it can come before Christmas, that's what I would want. I just hope that in that rush, it doesn't cost us, you and me, the American citizen, and my wonderful subscribers, and probably about 2,500 of you that are going to actually watch this video, that it doesn't cost us a better stimulus package. I get we'll have to figure out how to pay it back. I figured it out. I've got it. I understand. We'll have to figure this out later. Our kids are going to have to pay for this. Our grandkids are going to have to pay for it. Taxes are going to go up. Whatever the case is. But when I'm coming across people that I know now that literally have no food in the pantry, literally are facing eviction, literally are now having to move in with family, okay? Literally going without, okay? It's obvious, right? It breaks all of our hearts. So we need stimulus now. It needs to be well thought out. Right now, everybody's just pointing fingers, and we see all of the talk that still shows how out of touch DC is, in my opinion, with what's going on the ground. So, third time I've said it, October 15th is when I did my last stimulus video, when it was just about, here's what's going on. I'm putting this together to say, hey, here's what's going on. I don't see how anything changes in what I told you, because it's just going to be talk, 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 talk. And then when something passes, then we'll know what it is, and then we'll deal with it then. If we are approaching something that looks like it's narrowing down, as it relates to, if this is the case, then you need to be prepared for this. I reserve the right to put out 1 or 2 videos, maybe during the sausage making process, because I've done a couple of them, to say, hey, well, you know what? I'm reading this, and if this happens, you want to make sure you have this ready to go, because if it happens, you want to have this information ready to go. No false hope, just have this information ready to go. So if you haven't watched those videos, in 1 minute I'll recap. If you're a small business and you got PPP before, or you feel that you need PPP, or you're going to qualify for PPP, whatever the case is, have your books caught up through now. Your financials caught up through now. You need to be able to know what your monthly gross income was back to January 2019, all the way back to the prior year, and know what your gross income is each month. You're self-employed, get your bank statements out. What was your gross income each month? If you're a business and you don't have your books caught up, get them caught up. Figure out what your gross income is, because it seems very, very likely to qualify for PPP2. You're going to need to know that information, because there's going to be a qualifier, it sounds like, to where you're going to have to compare your sales in a period of time for 2020 compared to a similar period of time in 2019. Who knows? But you don't want to get caught watching the paint dry, and all of a sudden this next stimulus bill comes out. You need to have this information put together, and you don't have it. So don't delay on that. That's the one thing that I've talked about. So if I see some things that would help you prepare, I will put those out. Continue to look at my community page, as I said earlier, and my story for quick videos, 15 seconds, to at least just help you know, hey, here's a headline, but really it doesn't mean anything. Oh, here's another headline. This is really what that means. I give a reference, like I did tonight, to an article that kind of gives you a summary if you want to read it. I'll just say this. During the stimulus talks, if my recommendation was something that you would follow, don't watch YouTube for your stimulus negotiation news. Go and Google it and read the national publications on what's going on. The YouTubers, no offense, it's just not a great source for you to get your information while the sausage is being made, because it seems that it leads to either false hope or false depression, false negativity. All right, hey. Boy, you know what I told Amanda? Hey, I'm going to do a quick video. I thought, well, I better make this one count. And given that there'll probably just be 2,500 of you, which I love, I appreciate you, thanks for watching, that are going to watch this, I thought, you know what, as I got going, might as well just put it all in there, since I don't plan to do another video related to this. For any of you that are watching all the way to here, I appreciate you. Probably be helpful, just keep the political statements out of the comments. I'm just going to let you know I'm going to delete them. Even if you're one of my favorites and we want to blame this side or blame that side, I'm just going to delete them because that's not what this video is about. And when people read the comments and they see things that include politicians' names and whose fault it is and who to get out of office and all that, they don't watch the video. And while that's not necessarily the main point of shooting a video, it's to be informative, but nonetheless, I don't want someone to have a false impression of what this video is about. For those of you that have made it to here, if you're not a subscriber, hopefully you've seen a difference in what my channel's all about, and I would love it if you subscribe. All right, hey, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for letting me share my thoughts. This is a great way for me to also just process what's going on and, quite frankly, the stress of what's going on. So thanks for being a part of this, and hopefully we'll have stimulus soon that makes sense for all of us. All right, hey, don't you ever forget, you've never met a CPA quite like me. Talk to you all soon.